Hey everybody, it's your favorite trail guide, Leo. How we doing today? Today on the Hillbilly Files, I am on location in historic Mate 1, West Virginia. Now, we brought you up here for a couple other stories for other people, but we are here today at the corner of Hatfield Street and McCoy Street in historic Mate 1, West Virginia. How cool is that? Hatfield Street, that's it. McCoy Street, Hatfield Street. This is where the two come together. But we're here for a reason today. We're in Mate 1 for a reason. We've done some videos on several of, of the feud's participants, something like that sort of thing. And we've gotten most of them so far. We've gotten a lot of the big players. But Cap has been one that has eluded us. Cap Hatfield has been one who's eluded us. So we're going to go out today and we're going to document a little bit about Cap. We're going to show you his grave, tell you some of the stuff about him. Actually, Cap was the second oldest of 13 children. Most publications have him listed as being the oldest, but he wasn't. He was, however, the most dangerous of the entire Hatfield clan, hands down. Now, that's a fact. He was, even several publications back in the day and several people that actually knew the man actually said that he was by far the most dangerous person in the feud. But there was a whole lot of it that led up to it. See, he was born in 1862, 1 year after the famous feud had started, and he was involved in pretty much all of the main events of the feud. There was a few that he wasn't involved in. Most of them, most of the events he was, and some of them he actually instigated himself, deliberately. There's one that I can think of right off the top of my head, where he actually went so far as to trick other people into helping him. Do things. He'd tell them we're there to do one thing, we're there to whatever, and then when we get there, he shoots somebody. We were there to kill them all along, and you're going with me, that kind of thing. But he and Jim Vance, Cap and Jim Vance, they had been together. They'd been buddies for a long, long time. And they were like two little peas in a pod. Quite frankly, two little evil peas in a pod. Okay, not quite evil, but you get where I'm going. Cap, he had been brought up in a very violent upbringing. You can imagine the place was called Bloody Mingo, and he was, like I said, born and raised into the feud. So some of the things that this guy saw, that Cap actually seen, were beyond what some of the stuff that you and I have probably seen. Let's just put it that way. You can imagine some of the feud events, some of the stories that you've heard. Now imagine you're there and you're involved. So, that's the kind of thing. But Cap alone, he's credited for killing 18 men. And those are just the ones that we know about, are confirmed. There are reports that he had killed up to 24 or 26 men. But there's only been 18 that have been confirmed, which is a pretty good, killing 18 people, that's a pretty good record right there. But nobody really knows for sure, because quite frankly, whatever happens back in these hills and hollers, that's the new water plant, by the way, here we're in Mate 1. But whatever happened back in the day, back in these little hills and hollers, by God, it stayed back in the little hills and hollers. You and the guy you had the problem with are the only ones who even knew that you were there and knew what was going on. So like I said, nobody really knows for sure, how many people the man actually killed. No one really knows. He was in jail once and broke out. The man literally broke out of jail once. They said that one of his friends, this is one of his friends now, described him as 6 feet of pure devil and 180 pounds of pure hell. Now that's your friends saying this, okay? That's not your enemies. That's your friends saying this stuff, okay? So no, that's you're up there. You know, your friends talk that kind of stuff. He was at the McCoy house the night it was burned, and that was one of the events that he instigated. As a matter of fact, he implied that we're going for one reason, and then when we got there, we find out he's there for a totally different reason. He's there for blood. But later on in life, he turned out he was actually, see, being from this area back in the day, education wasn't really a thing. You know, let's just say it like it was. You didn't really get an education. That wasn't really a thing here. You learned how to hunt and how to farm and that sort of thing. But he didn't have much of an education. So later on in life, Cap was he was a very a ravenous reader. They said that he loved to read it, even during the feud. But after the feud ended later in life, he decided that he wanted to be a lawyer, and so he studies on his own, and he passes the bar and all that, and he actually becomes a lawyer. But he didn't practice. He didn't actually use his law degree, but he did become a lawyer. And he also served as a deputy sheriff of Logan County under J.D. Hatfield. But he has several children. We're going to head up here in a minute. He died at 68, by the way. He was in Johns Hopkins, and he had, it says, a brain ailment. It doesn't exactly say what he died of. It just says a brain ailment. So we're going to swing by, and I'm going to actually show you both of these. I'm going to show you where Cap's house was and his gravesite. Now the gravesite is a little bit iffy. You have to cross private land to get to it, to get to where the graveyard is, and those can be a little bit iffy. When you run into situations like that, we avoid anywhere where there's a no trespassing sign. We won't go there. We respect people's land. But we've actually had a couple where you do all of the homework, you do all of the research, you go out and you hit the sites and you tell people all the stories, and you do this, you do that, you do the other. At the end of the day, you get to the graveyard and it's on private property and it's gated. And we've actually had a couple of these. We've had a couple of stories that we get 95% done, but you can't get the last 5%. And we've actually had, I think, 3 so far that we've wound up in that situation. You totally immerse yourself in the story for days, reading about it, studying about it, going out and getting the first few sites where this happened and that happened and the other thing happened, and then you get to the graveyard to where the final stop, and you can't finish the video. So, there's always that possibility, or you can't find a grave. I've had that happen a couple times. Unmarked graves. It's hard to find an unmarked grave. So, but Cap's isn't. His has a nice marker. I know what his marker looks like, and I'm pretty sure I actually saw his marker from the road, but I'm not sure if it was his or not. But the guy that owns the place now, he raises chickens, and he's got a whole bunch of chickens out there, that kind of thing. So we're going to head on up and show you some pretty views of some really pretty places along the way. I'll maybe show you a couple on the way, and we'll head on up, and I'm going to show you his old house. You won't believe this. He has a beautiful bridge, has his name right on it. Says it's Cap Hatfield's house. But there's flowers blooming back in there. It's early spring. Well, it's March 1st, so I guess you could say early spring. But there's actually flowers blooming just beyond the bridge that were actually put out by, by the family. They actually put those flowers out. And we're going to head on up from there and go on up to the gravesite. And so I guess if you guys are ready, we'll load up and head on up. And we've got some miles to cover. Like I said, we're in Mate 1, and we're going to have to go to Sarah Ann, West Virginia, where Devil Anse is buried at. He's just past Devil Anse, just a little ways, on also on Route 44. They're both on Route 44. But it's on up past Devil Anse's house on a hillside. As you know, there's always a hillside that Leo has to climb. That never fails. There's always a hillside, and Leo's got to climb it. So on the bright side, guys, doing these videos has been really good for my health. We did one the other day, Jenny Wiley, and we were at the bottom of the hill, and I was going to go up and run up and get the video, and ran all the way up the hill, sat down in front of it, read the plaque, all that kind of stuff, and and I'm just sitting there reading the plaque and stuff, and I'm thinking, man, I did pretty good. That was impressive. Get all the way up that hill, not puffing, not huffing and puffing, and sit down and read. And yeah, all right, yay YouTube. But anyhow, so all right, let's get loaded up. Now this right here is called Sterrett, West Virginia. It's just down the road from Sarah Ann. This is Route 44, and the Devil Anse Cemetery is about a quarter mile on your right, and Devil Anse's house is about 500 yards past that, where Devil Anse's home place is, where I did the video the other day. We've already brought you up there a couple times, but this here, what I wanted to show you, this little piece of property right here, this is Cap Hatfield's actual house. This is where Cap Hatfield actually lived. I mean, it's just a really pretty stream. That's beautiful. There's a little trash here and there, but it has to do with floods. Water gets up in someone's house, and you know how it is. Floods that's what they do. But we were over here the other day, and it was raining. There was a mink out here running around, and anybody watch my shows, watch our videos, they know I tend to get distracted by wildlife. So we're out here talking about Cap, and I'm like, oh, look, a mink. Look, oh my God, it's a mink, look. But I can't help it, y'all, I can't help it. But this right here is the actual bridge. Cap actually built this bridge. This was how you went to his house. And if you look right here, check this out. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way. There's a, I think it's brass, not sure, whatever it is, right here on the side of the bridge. If you notice, it says, the home of Cap Hatfield. Bridge erected October 30 by Larnset Thompson Contractors. And you can see, if you look, you can see where people have been chipping little tiny bits of concrete and even little tiny bits of the metal out of this thing for souvenirs. And there's not really a whole lot of people who know where it's at. Some do, but not a whole lot. Like I said, it's kind of hard to find if you don't know where it's at. But anyhow, this is his actual piece of property. This is where his house was. Now they've got, no trespassing. They got 5 of them, 5 no trespassing signs. But I was here the other day with a relative, and I'm a distant relative, so I don't think it'll be too much of a big deal to not go in the property, but go to the edge of it. Just wanted to show you something, show you how pretty this was. Now you can picture, you can see all the brush and stuff. It's overgrown really bad, but you can see where there are flowers. They had flowers right there. I'm not sure what those are called. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. But anyhow, they're actual flowers that were planted here. You know, the family actually planted those flowers here. Look at that. Look at that tree. You know, they drove right by this. You know, Cap rode right by this many, many, many times to get home. Right there's where the house sat, right there. Now, Cap, like I told you earlier, he really was, you know, he was one of the instigators. A lot of this stuff, the feud would have probably died out if Cap hadn't intervened in a few critical moments. Like I said earlier, he was raised in the feud. He was born into it and raised to be a feudist. So this was all second nature, you know, basically it was second nature to the man. But he was, now this is conjecture, this is opinion, and we make a point, you know, with historical, anything historical characters, historical events, that sort of thing. We always make a point to mention, you know, if something is conjecture, opinion, theory, whatever, you know, we always make a point to mention that sort of thing. We try to remain as historically accurate as possible. But a lot of people, we'll just put it that way, considered Cap to be Devil Ance's favorite child. You know how that is. Mom used to say that she wouldn't put a hair between my sister and I. But you know good and well that sometimes if you have a bunch of kids and one of them is like you don't say it, but that's kind of your favorite kid. So anyway, Devil Ance, he was a captain in the Civil War. And when Cap was born, they called him Little Captain because he was like Devil Ance. He was a lot like his dad. So like I said, they called him Little Captain. And years later, the little part, they dropped the little part, and he just became Cap for the rest of his life. He was called Cap. And Devil Ance, he went with the name Devil Ance. When they started calling him that, you know, rumor is that Randall may have actually started the whole Devil Ance thing. But a couple different stories about it. So like I said, that's conjecture, you know, where the name actually came from. But I just thought it was interesting that there's this one story in particular about Cap. Now, like I told you, he's killed 18 men that we know of, that for sure he's killed 18. Possibly 24 or maybe even 26. We're not really sure. But there was this one story about this guy named Doc. He was, I think, at Basden. Now, during the Civil War days, when everyone was signing up to fight for the South and all this kind of stuff, Doc Basden, he decides that he's going to sign up too, so he signs up with Devil Ance, to Devil Ance's regiment. He had some medical conditions, and so they wouldn't let him fight. They refused to let him fight. So Doc Basden, he decides that he's going to be a medic. So he joins and he becomes a medic. Years later, you know, after the Civil War and Devil Ance and all of them, they came back home and all that kind of thing. Cap and Doc Basden, they get into an argument. And this is one of the times that Cap gets shot. He actually gets shot 2 or 3 times. And he lives through them. He's the very, very lucky individual. 9 lives for sure. But he gets shot in the stomach. Doc shoots him in the stomach. They get into an argument, and, you know, words turn to this, turn to that. Next thing you know, the guns come out. That's kind of how it was back in the day. Might makes right. If you could beat the other guy up, you were right and he was wrong. That's just as simple as that. So anyhow, like I said, they get into this big fight, and Doc, he shoots Cap in the stomach. He leaves, you know, he goes on home, all this kind of stuff, you know, and they take Cap, they take Cap home, bring him back over here. But anyway, several of the Hatfields, they go to Doc, and they sit him down, and they basically ask him a simple question. Exactly what do you think Devil Ance is going to do to you and your family if Cap dies? That's something to seriously think about. This is Devil Ance Hatfield. This is his favorite son. and you've just put a bullet in his belly. And Cap, he's laying up there. He's pretty bad off with this bullet. It took him a while to recover. So Doc, being wise, he gets his stuff together, and he goes back up there, and he takes the bullet out of Cap's stomach that he put in Cap's stomach the night before. Yes, he comes up here. The guy, Doc, comes up here to the house, and he takes the bullet back out of Cap because he knows. But anyhow, I just thought I'd show you guys here. I thought I'd bring you here. It was right on the way, and show you Cap Hatfield's old house. Now we're going to go right down here in just a second. Look at that creek. How pretty is that? How beautiful is this little piece of property? Now just imagine this with no power lines and, you know, no road. It's just a little horse trail, that kind of thing. How beautiful would this be? How beautiful would this little piece of property be? Fresh water, all kinds of wildlife. You've got everything you could need for the rest of your life right here. And leave for sugar, salt. That's about it. That's what Mom used to say, that when she was little, they didn't really leave unless they needed sugar, salt, or flour, something like that. They didn't really leave the holler. Once you went in the holler, you were there. You know, your food came from there. Your water came from here. All of your building materials, everything you needed, came from the land. And you know, that's just how things work. That's how you did it. If you're crossing someone's land, you know, you want to be respectful. And you know that sometimes people can have stipulations, like the three McCoy boys buried at the Forbidden Graveyard. No one's been there. No one. Very handful of people through, you know, in the last 50 years, or you know, since the boys were buried, have actually seen the place. And you can get up there, but you have to go through proper channels. You have to prove that you're actually a descendant to be allowed access. And so sometimes, like I said, you know, it can be a problem gaining access to these places. And it's always better. Mom always used to say you'll catch more flies with honey than you will with vinegar. So the way I see it, it's always best to respect people's wishes and respect their property, respect their land. I mean, you know, if somebody rolls up on your property without your permission, you might have an issue with that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go down, we're going to be polite, and we're going to ask and go up and see if we can't get some video of the gravesite. I haven't seen this. Oh, got somebody here, curious. Let's talk to you in a minute. How you doing? Okay, I'm close. Y'all like chickens? Hi, big puppy. You're fine, honey. Yeah, you're doing your job. I know. Okay, I think I see it. Gabrielle. John. Jonathan Ray Osborne. Right back there is where we're going. And it says descendants only. So, we're good. There it is. That's it. Wow. Cap Hatfield's grave. February 6th, 1864 to August 22nd, 1930. And Nancy E. Smith Hatfield, September 10th, 1866, and does not have a a death date. Right there, the one and only Cap Hatfield, guys. Right there. Now, how wild is that? The one and only. A lot of people feel, but like I said, without a whole lot of speculation, conjecture, that Cap was one of the prime instigators of the feud. And he was very lucky. He escaped getting killed, grew old, became a lawyer, became a deputy sheriff. He had a good life. He said he was blessed. He said he was charmed. A reporter asked him one time about it, and he said that he was charmed. That been in 300 gunfights, and only got hit a few times, something to that effect, and didn't, he got hurt a couple times. The one where Doc shot him in the stomach was pretty bad, but he got over it. He healed, and he's a very lucky individual. He really was. Like I said, he escaped the brunt of the feud and went on to have a very, what's the right word? Fulfilling life, I suppose is the right word. Like I said, he became a lawyer, became a deputy sheriff, had a beautiful little piece of land, beautiful home. But there he is, guys. The one and only Cap Hatfield. Hillbilly Files, Legends and Locations. Be sure and subscribe, guys. We appreciate you, by the way. We love bringing you out here, showing you this kind of stuff. You guys are how we do it. We couldn't do it without you guys. You subscribing to our page. Great big thank you to all of our page members, by the way. We are up to, I think, 21 now. So, yeah, we're using that to try and help finance more of this stuff. Bring you more of this stuff. The one and only Cap Hatfield right there. I'm going to poke around just a little bit. There's a few others here. Beautiful spot. Look at this. A lot of chickens in it. There's a lot of chickens. Okay, we got a couple over here. Looks like an old military one. Yep. World War II. Lewis Berries, West Virginia, private. World War II. Died in 1961. And over here is Muriel May Hatfield, Die Berries. July 5th, 1907 to May 5th, 1988. There's another one there with just marker stones around it, just an outline around it. And I see a couple there. So there are some more unmarked ones here with Cap. Nice fence though. All fenced in. It's nice. This one in here. Glenn Dye Jr. U.S. Army, Korea, and Vietnam. 1928 to 1993. Rest well, Glenn. You did well, brother. Robert E. Hatfield. Okay, yeah, I knew that is. And Mary E. Hatfield. It's 1897 to 1975. And Mary is 1905 to 1971. And there's another grave back there. A couple of them just outlines. Have rocks outlining them. And that's it. This is Kirk, Cassie, and Nancy Kirk. Glenn. A couple old ones there. But here's a military, I always try to point out our veterans, mention their names when I see them. This is Tennis O. Glenn, West Virginia, Corporal U.S. Army, World War II, December 12, 1924 to September 23rd, 1972. World War II vet. Nothing but respect. There's another one too. There's several of them here. This is Joseph Allen Day, U.S. Air Force, April 1st, 1933 to July 20th, 1981. And here's some old ones. Don't know if we'll be able to read these or not, but we'll give it a try. Two or three letters. I see a death date of 1947. I'm not sure the name though. And this is a Glenn as well. Josephine Glenn. Can't tell the birth date, but the death date looks like 1938. I see another military one over there as well. Woody. This says daughter and Woody at the bottom. I can't read the name on it. And this one's Woody as well. Jeanette E. and George W. Now, where was that military one? Oh, it wasn't a military. It just looked like one. James B. Sullins, January 9th, 1877 to November 10th, 1957. And you can see there's a few more. There's one. There's one. There's one. Look at that one. The wooden cross and some rocks. And there, you can see there's one under there as well. There's probably, just guessing, I'm gonna say there's several more up here. It looks like one there, one there. So I'm gonna guess that there's several more unmarked ones here. But that's the one we came for right there. Cap Hatfield himself. As far as feud figures go, Cap is probably one of the better known, right after Devil Anse and John C. and Randall, of course. But definitely a major player in the feud, for sure. And here he is. Okay, well, we found him. And we found some chickens too. And a really big dog. But but anyhow, I guess we're gonna head on out and head on back toward the house. This is still Sterrett, West Virginia. I stopped here just for a second. Thought I'd show you the giant loadouts. Check that out. Big ones. Coal trains come underneath that, and they fill the trains up as they go by here. The reason I stopped here just for a second, I just wanted to show you something. Like I showed you earlier, Devil Anse's house is back up that way. The Devil Anse Cemetery Cap's graveyard, Cap's house, all that stuff is just right up here. But when Devil Anse died for his funeral, I just wanted to show y'all something real quick on the way back out before I left. This right here was a huge rail yard for you know, timber and coal and stuff like that. And you can see back over in through there where the rail yard actually was. You can kind of see where it was, that sort of thing. But when Devil Anse's funeral train, when Devil Anse died, there were 5,000 people who came to Devil Anse's funeral. And they said that they pulled in the trains here at the yard, and they would park the trains here and take the people on up to the graveyard in wagons from here. That's how many people were in this little tiny community for Devil Anse's funeral. Still going. And that's the end of the rail yard right there. The rail yard ends right there. That one's seen better days. Right up there is Cap. That's where the chickens are, I just showed you. That's Cap up there. And since we're right here at it, we'll just go on up and show you in relation to his house and the graveyard. Show you how close all of this stuff is together. Right, here's Cap's house. There were stories that there was animosity between Devil Anse and Cap in later years. Maybe a little bit, but I mean, you know, really, like I said, Cap was pretty much Devil Anse's favorite son, and they lived together. They chose in later years to live just a couple miles apart from each other. Matter of fact, we'll be coming up on Devil Anse's house here in just a minute. And we just left Cap's. Devil Anse's, the graveyard and the house is about a minute or so right up here. But I just thought I'd show you some of this. This is Sarah Ann, West Virginia. And this, like I said, this is how close they were. You know, they obviously, there wasn't that much animosity if they lived that close together and buried that close together and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, this is all Route 44 here in southern West Virginia. And right here, Devil Anse is buried right here. He's up on top of the hill, right straight up there. That's where Devil Anse is buried. And let's see, John C. Ellison, or not Ellison, Ellis. There's several up there. And right here is the Devil Anse home place. So they're all right here within, what, less than a mile of each other. But I gotta go in. We'll talk to Cap Hatfield again for a second. He's the great grandson of Devil Anse Hatfield. He's putting in a museum. We just did a video on this museum the other day. But I just wanted to stop in for a minute and talk to him. Oh, we mentioned the other day in the video, check this out. We mentioned it in the video, but I didn't cover it that well. If you look right up there, you can see a flat. You see that flat right in there? It levels off. That was the Hatfield's hideout back in there. That was where their hideout was. And this was Devil Ance's home place. And they could sit up there, sharpshooters. They could watch the road coming both ways and get a good shot at the house if anybody showed up from right there. So yeah, they actually stayed there in the hideout for a while, and Devil Ance's wife got tired of it and she wanted to move over here. So that's what we did. But anyhow, I'm gonna go in and talk to Jack for a second. Talk to you guys a little bit later. Like I said, just thought I'd show you how close everything was. Now this right here is, well, it has nothing to do with Cap. This is where the Devil Ance Trail, Hatfield McCoy Trail System, the Devil Ance Trail goes right in through here, and you can see the pipe there, the tunnel, where it goes under the highway, the trail system does, and comes out the other side and keeps going. But it's just a really pretty spot. This is the King Cole Scenic Highway. I just stopped here for a second real quick, you know, on the way back from doing the video. You know how sometimes when you're doing these, you have a little bit of time on the way home for things to kind of soak in, so to speak, and something occurs to you, and well, that just happened. And it just occurs to me, you know, on the way back, I was coming up through here thinking about this, and it just occurs to me that it's just strange, it's odd that you could have a child who is so much like you that it actually drives a wedge between you and your child. And Cap was one of those situations. When he was young, he was, you know, he was Devil Ance's pick. He was Cap, you know, little captain. And by the time, you know, that they had gotten old and all this kind of stuff, even though they lived together, they lived nearby each other, and like I said, you know, they semi got along, you know, that kind of thing. But at this point, the reason that Cap is buried at a different cemetery, he's not buried at Devil Ance's, where Devil Ance is buried at, and he's not buried there for a reason. Because you see, him and Cap in later years, after they, you know, they grew up, Cap grew up, all that kind of stuff, as with happens often in families, they tend to become estranged. Cap, by all accounts that we find, that we've read, that we've ever heard of, how do you put this politely? We'll just say Cap was not known to be a particularly nice person. We'll just put it that way. And Devil Ance himself, he had a pretty fierce reputation. You don't get called Devil Ance for nothing. There was a time Cap in his mid-years, he had a knife. It's his little pig sticker, he called it. And there's a famous picture of him holding this knife. I can't think of the name of it. He had a name for it. He named his knife. And according to stories, don't really know how many, but supposedly he had killed a lot of people with that knife. And that knife was, he named it. It was like a pet, you know? And someone who has a favorite murder weapon, you kind of get where I'm going here. You're probably not the nicest person around if you have a favorite murder weapon. But that's why he's buried in a separate graveyard today, is because Devil Ance actually barred him. He told him point blank, told him straight out, and made arrangements and everything, and made it clear that Cap was not to be buried in the family cemetery. And that's why he's in his own, that's why he's where he's at, and the rest of the family is at the family graveyard. But like I said, I just thought that was kind of ironic, you know, a little bit of an ironic twist, that, you know, his entire life, Cap had been vicious, I guess is the right word. And he had been taught from a young age that was the way to go, you know, to be vicious, to be, might makes right. You know, that's what he was taught from birth. And that's the life he lived. So, you know, it's just strange, you know, you see all these historical characters, all these historical figures, and then you start to dig a little bit deeper, and there's an actual person underneath that historical figure. And sometimes they turn out to be awesome people, sometimes not so much. You know, sometimes some of our subjects of our little stories, they're war heroes. Sometimes they saved a lot of people's lives. Sometimes they had a favorite murder weapon. Wild, isn't it? Anyway, final thoughts. Like I said, just thought I'd throw that in there. Alright, we'll see you guys next time. I'm gonna head on out again. I've closed this video like 3 times already. I think we probably leave it closed this time, I think, unless something comes up. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time. Probably, unless I see you in a minute.